Star Wars The Clone Wars is back. Or rather, it might as well be, because The Bad Batch is picking up right where our childhood favourite left off. The series' grand premiere was absolutely spectacular, and we highly recommend that you watch it before proceeding with this video, because there will be spoilers ahead. Consider that an order, trooper.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
Last night's premiere had many twists in store for us, but perhaps the most shocking one was the revelation that the Kaminoans were secretly at odds with the Empire and helped the Bad Batch escape in the end. This was quite the unexpected course of action for everyone's favourite sadistic cloners, and it raises many questions about where this series is going with the Kaminoans. Are the eugenics dinos going to end up on the right side of things for once? Personally, we suspect we may have just seen the beginning of something you may remember from Legends, the Kaminoan Clone Rebellion. Throughout the series premiere, we started to see some discontent on Kamino. With the Clone Wars over and Order 66 executed, certain factions within the newly established Empire were keen to discontinue its contracts with the Kaminoans. Represented by Moff Tarkin, these Imperials saw clone troopers as an unnecessary expense and lobbied the Emperor to replace them with a recruited force. The Kaminoans clearly were not pleased about the prospect of losing their biggest contract. In general, they didn't seem like the biggest fans of the new Empire, with Prime Minister Lama Su adopting a wait-and-see approach to the new government. The cherry on top came when Nala Se, a Kaminoan geneticist, surreptitiously helped the Bad Batch escape to Poker City at the end of the episode. Now, if you've seen our past videos about the Kaminoans, you might be a little confused right about now. As we've discussed many times in the past, the Kaminoans were cold and heartless, and even Nala Se, who was on the nicer side for a Kaminoan, still viewed clones as products, as property, not as people. In general, the Kaminoans viewed non-Kaminoans as inferiors incapable of reaching genetic perfection, and only cared about them as far as they needed to make a few credits. It makes little sense then for Nala Se to have let the Bad Batch escape. Did she magically grow a heart overnight or something? We doubt it. We don't think the Kaminoans suddenly got nicer, even if it may seem that way by their actions. Rather, we think the Kaminoans had their own stake in the survival of the Bad Batch, and a much less noble motive for helping them. The Kaminoans likely had their profits in mind, not the lives of their products. But this, in turn, raises another question. Wouldn't working against the Empire have risked Kaminoan profits even more by potentially costing them their contract? After seeing firsthand what Moff Tarkin thought of their clones, the Kaminoans probably understood that their contract wasn't going to last nearly as long as they had hoped. Tarkin was quite open about his contempt for the idea of a clone army, even after the Bad Batch proved themselves to him in the training arena. Clones simply weren't cost effective enough for his tastes, even if they were superior to recruited troops. The Kaminoans weren't stupid, and being profit-oriented beings themselves, they probably understood that the urge to cut costs would win out over the desire for higher quality. Furthermore, even if they won the immediate battle with Tarkin, they would have to keep fighting for the continuation of their contract with the Empire, and sooner or later, they would lose. Now, unlike most potential rebels, the Kaminoans didn't give a whit about the politics of the Empire. The affairs of non-Kaminoans were irrelevant for them so long as there weren't profitable contracts involved. Besides, as Crosshair so astutely observed, the differences between the wartime Republic and the early Empire were purely cosmetic, and the Kaminoans had been perfectly fine with supplying troops to a Republic that, in reality, had already become a vicious empire.
Republic, Empire, what's the difference?
However, they did care about external affairs that impacted their business, like the termination of their biggest contracts or restrictions placed on the cloning industry. Both of these things were concerns for the Kaminoans in the age of the Empire. During the Clone Wars, the Republic had severely restricted non-military cloning for obvious reasons, and the Empire kept up those restrictions. The Kaminoans were perfectly fine with this while they still had the Grand Army contract, as it just meant they wouldn't have any competitors. But if they were to lose that contract, then those regulations would have quickly become stifling. After all, cloning wasn't just the primary industry on Kamino, it was the Kaminoans' way of life. The rise of the Empire put this way of life in a precarious position, and thus the Kaminoans had to tread carefully in the Empire's early days, as the wrong step had the potential to doom their entire civilization. Now, in that early stretch of the Dark Times, we'd bet the Kaminoans simply hoped that the Imperials would just let them keep their contract, allowing them to get on with things. As we said, they weren't really bothered by the Empire so long as they still got paid. But the Kaminoans saw the writing on the wall, and doubtlessly, they started to explore other options as soon as Tarkin left the room after their first meeting. This, we believe, is where the Bad Batch entered the picture. The Kaminoans likely kept the Bad Batch alive as insurance. Now, this could have worked in one of two ways. It's possible that Nala Se hoped that allowing the Bad Batch to escape would lead to the Bad Batch causing problems for the Empire, forcing them to turn to the Kaminoans for help. After all, the Kaminoans were the only ones who really understood the Bad Batch and how to stop them, and they may have been hoping that the Empire would be more charitable to them in exchange for aid in stopping these runaway commandos. However, the Kaminoans could have also wanted the Bad Batch to escape because they thought the clones could be useful in the future. The Kaminoans likely saw the Bad Batch as their ace in the hole, their most impressive and effective products. Obviously, they wanted more clones like them, as the existence of Omega proves, as had the episode's implications that they had originally engineered many more clones with desirable mutations, and that those 5 were just the only survivors. We'd bet that their hope was that these mutated clones could either help them win new contracts with the Empire, or help them against the Empire in case things went south. Either way, they'd want the Bad Batch alive, hence why Nala Se helped them escape. If she didn't, it's likely that Hunter, Wrecker, Tech Echo, and Omega all would have been killed, leaving the Kaminoans with just Crosshair to work with, and his Imperial loyalties meant that he wouldn't have been a good candidate for study. Furthermore, the fact that the Kaminoans had only managed to successfully engineer 5 mutant clones suggests that the process was intensely difficult, and thus, they would have wanted to keep as many of their existing mutants alive as possible. We doubt that the Kaminoans were seriously considering rebellion this early on, but it's plausible enough that things could have gone in that direction once the Empire cancelled their contract, as we know they did shortly after Order 66. As fans of the old Battlefront 2 know, this is more or less what happened in Legends, albeit in 12 BBY instead of 19 BBY. In Legends, Kaminoan dissatisfaction with Imperial restrictions led to the Kaminoans starting a rebellion with their own clone army, complete with elite anti-troopers and a new class of arcs. The Kaminoan rebellion was short-lived, as the 501st Legion crushed it before it could spread beyond Topoka City, but it was nonetheless a notable event that led the Empire to transition away from the use of clones. We might end up seeing something similar in canon with the Bad Batch. In canon, upon losing their military contract, the Kaminoans would have been left with just one option to avoid financial ruin: rebellion. There's no better way to escape Imperial regulations than throwing off Imperial rule altogether, after all. Who knew the Kaminoans were American this whole time? Of course, rebellion against the Empire was bound to be an uphill battle, as the Kaminoans would not have only been able to rely on their existing clones. Of course, rebellion against the Empire was bound to be an uphill battle, as the Kaminoans would not have been able to rely on their existing clones, with 5 notable exceptions. The Kaminoans knew that the Bad Batch more or less shared their views on the Empire, with the exception of Crosshair, and that they would be willing to battle their fascist brothers if it came to it. All the Kaminoans needed were a few more clones like them, and they would have stood a fair chance against the Empire. That, in all likelihood, was their angle in saving the Bad Batch, and where the Kaminoans will be headed in future episodes of the new show. So, that's our look at how the rise of the Empire affected the Kaminoans, and what we think they're gonna do about it. But what do you think? Has the Bad Batch left you with other unanswered questions you'd like to see us cover? Would you like to see a video theorizing about where the hell Crosshair keeps getting all those toothpicks next? Feel free to post all that and more in the comment section below. As always guys, thank you so much for watching and I hope to see you in the next video.